The Idol. Very interesting premise and show here. It was originally announced about 2 years ago, I believe, back in 2021, that Abel Tesfaye, known to most people across the world as The Weeknd, global pop superstar, artist, musician, was going to create a show for HBO, and he was actually going to be teaming up with not Sam Levinson, but initially it was going to be a partnership between him and Amy Seimetz, who was originally sort of the showrunner. And they were developing the show and eventually got to the principal photography stage, but Amy Seimetz eventually departed the show as the showrunner and director and decided to leave, I believe, over creative differences. And recently, before the show premiered on HBO, Rolling Stone had published a very lengthy article about the troubled production of The Idol, basically
Mhm.
detailing why Amy Seimetz left, why she had disagreements with Abel and other creators of the show, and eventually that led to Sam Levinson entering this show to essentially take over. And much of that report sort of talked about the chaotic nature of filming, the unpredictability of things, the unfinished scripts. There were just so many moving pieces and moving components, and she ultimately found that the creative direction and where the story and tone were going to head were just not to her liking. And Abel, on the contrary, felt that the show at that particular time was a little bit too focused on Lily Rose Depp's character, that it should have been more centered on his character Tedros. And so he decided to, sort of pivot. And I think that they just decided to part ways, and that's what led to Sam Levinson coming in here. And so I had always been interested in the show just due to the fact that
Mhm.
I really like The Weeknd. I love his music. And so I was interested to see him explore TV and playing a character. And I know he's big into film as well. And so I was interested in checking it out, much less for Sam Levinson, I would say, to be honest, because I'm not necessarily a big fan of his, but he is a very interesting visual director. And so I thought that as a pair, they could have brought something to the table. I got a chance to watch this show. They just premiered the season finale, probably even series finale. We don't know yet, out of a 5 episode first season. And I got to just
Mm.
say, don't like the show. I don't think it's all that great. It's not really something that I found myself enjoying for a couple of key reasons. One, it just felt completely incoherent to me. I don't feel that the show really had much of a purpose in terms of exploring the characters. One thing that the show had going for it in its rollout and its promotion was sort of the shock nature of it. The really I guess I would say just the salaciousness of the material, the fact that you were exploring this predatory figure in Tedros, played by The Weeknd, who was going to basically take over the life of this pop superstar, played by Lily Rose Depp. And so people wanted to sort of see the sexual, provocative nature of what that would look like, because he essentially had a cult. He had a cult of artists that would just follow behind him, do whatever he wanted them to do, and to some extent abuse them mentally, sometimes
Mhm.
physically. And so to see that unfold with this character, played by Lily Rose Depp, Jocelyn, was somewhat interesting on the premise of it, but then you see the execution of it, and it just kind of felt like that I didn't really understand the motivations of anybody involved. I think Jocelyn as a character played by Lily Rose Depp is like the most interesting of everybody, because you do see the star who is at somewhat of a crossroads. She has a team around her who also, similar to Tedros, seem very predatory. They seem like they're taking advantage of her. They seem like they have ulterior motives. And so you're kind of examining, like, who's the real monster in the room? Is it this guy
Mhm.
who's like clearly a pimp, or is it just the team around her who claim to want her best interest, but they actually have their own sort of financial gains and things that they're going after? And so that's an interesting idea, but the show never really goes any deeper beyond that. We don't get to really
Mhm.
understand and learn about the characters. The person that we learn about the most is Tedros. We learned that he does have a very checkered background. He has a nightclub, but he was in prison at one point in time. And so all the stuff that he does isn't that surprising. But I think that just like the material of it, and just the way that it was executed wasn't all that interesting, because you just watch one sequence after another where they're doing really crazy, wild shit. And it's like, yeah, this is sick and kind of twisted, but we have many options today where we can watch sick and twisted stuff. This isn't all that shocking. And so if they were going after like
Mhm.
super shocking material, I don't feel that it was all that shocking, really, because like we just live in a time where sexual content, things on TV, streaming, wherever, like we have such easy access to that stuff, and we see like much worse shit in real life oftentimes,
Yeah.
where I'm watching the show and it's like, well, it's not that shocking. And then you kind of go on the other side of it where you examine the music industry and how people just latch on to certain figures and just try to suck all the life out of them. And that can be an interesting concept. And you can think about like real life pop stars who've gone through stuff like that, like a Britney Spears. But again, when you look at a figurehead like a Britney, you can just like watch her life story, and that's infinitely more interesting. You can watch a documentary about the shit that she's been through, and that's probably gonna yield more value out of it than watching the show, because the writing isn't there, the character development isn't there, and there's not really, I think, much there that audiences would latch on to in terms of just like an emotional story that makes you feel something. The one credit that I will give it, which is no surprise because it is Sam Levinson, is that visually it is gorgeous. You know, he knows how to visually bring something to life in an interesting way. He's employed all sorts of tactics. He really has kind of carte blanche, I think, with HBO and many other streamers to just like do what he wants. And he makes things look interesting and they look gorgeous and beautiful. So the way that it's filmed, the way that it's shot and edited, all of that stuff is next level. It certainly elevates the material. But when you go into the story, it's not really that much there. And I was reading like other behind the scenes sort of accounts to this, and it makes a lot of sense. But I remember one of the stars saying that really only 50% of the show was scripted. I believe it was Divine Joy Randolph, who plays like one of the better characters in the show, but she said it was like 50% scripted. The rest of it was just kind of like off the cuff, really, really improv material. And when you watch it, you can tell, because there are a lot of sequences where there's like nobody talking. Shit's just happening. People are dancing, or they're naked, or they're having sex, or they're taking drugs, or whatever the fuck is going on. And it's like, okay, so where's the writing? Like, who's actually like, where's the story moving along here? Where's the momentum to keep us progressing? And so I think it becomes painfully obvious that they didn't put the time and attention and care into it to actually make it something coherent. It's really just kind of something to view as a spectacle, really, to see like these people's lives sort of deteriorate before your very eyes. And so those are my thoughts on The Idol. I don't know if it'll come back. I don't know if there'll be more episodes, but I do want to ask you, do you intend to watch it? What do you think about just the conversation surrounding it? Because it has sort of dominated the internet discourse for the past few weeks that has been on the air.
You know, if it was longer, I probably wouldn't watch it, but I feel like I can do 5 episodes just to laugh at it a little bit. Also because, one, I also like The Weeknd, so part of me just wants to watch it just to see what Abel has to bring to the table at all. Not only that, but the comedy that I hear about the show actually makes me want to watch it regardless of how bad it is. Like, I remember GQ just came out and said it was like it contains one of the worst sex scenes of all time, which a lot of people also agree with. That is one of the worst sex scenes of all time. Not only that, but when the series premiered, there were people who were not review bombing it, but whatever the opposite is. There were review jumping, I don't know what to call it, but we're bringing it back to life. Apparently, it was like 200 something people on Rotten Tomatoes who was giving it like 100%. And everyone was like, and it's funny because all the critics were trying to figure it out, like, who is doing this? So apparently there's like a whole conspiracy behind that too. That's going on. So I do kind of want to watch it. Like you said, Sam Levinson is up and down for me. I know visually he's going to give me what I want. Because I mean, I think visually he's just a beast. Euphoria is a kind of tells us that. Same with Malcolm and Marie. I think visually that's doing what it needs to do. And so it's interesting that he remains, I think, in the same vein of shows. But it sounds like at least Euphoria, for the most part, has something to say, right? And is trying to say something about its characters. It sounds like this is not it at all, and it doesn't have anything to say about its characters. So I think I am going to watch it, but I'm probably having it on like the background. You know what I mean? Or I'll pay attention when like there is something a little more jarring happening on the screen. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is ridiculous. But it's been called cringe. It's been called boring. It's been called crazy, and all these other things. So I will check it out real quick again, just because it's 5 episodes. But other than that, man, it's sad that Abel had to go out like this, man. It's sad.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to describe it. That it's the perfect show to have on in the background. Like, you can do something else, but as a background piece of entertainment, it actually kind of works because it'll grab your attention when you see some wild, crazy shit going down. Like when you see fucking Tedros like fingering Jocelyn while she's making a track. It's like, oh shit, let me go ahead and stop what I'm doing real quick and watch that for 2 minutes.
The Empire.
Like that, not Empire. But yeah, like stuff like that will grab your attention. But yeah, it's not something that you necessarily need to like, I'm gonna put my phone down and like really give this the time and attention that it deserves because it's such a great character study. It's not that at all. Luckily for Abel, he's such a global superstar that even if this doesn't get picked up again, even though it did get nailed by the critics, it won't do anything, I think, to necessarily hurt his star status. Like, he's just such a transcendent musical force at this point, and he's established such a fan base that he'll be fine from this. But I think when you look at him and Sam Levinson together, and like when I watched the show, it just became very clear to me that this was sort of a vanity project to just really do something that they wanted to do that they thought would be dope. And HBO didn't really have any rules or regulations for them. So they said, yeah, do whatever you want. We'll just sort of stand out of the way and we'll make it happen, give you the check that you need, and just go from there. And so I can pretty much tell that, you know, it was just two guys who came together and just wanted to tell a story that had a lot of shocking material and subject matter, but it won't necessarily resonate beyond that, I think. And we'll see if it comes back for a season 2 or not. We'll have to wait and stand by and see. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on HBO's original series, The Idol. If you checked out the series, hit us up and let us know what you think.